Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments. I'm your host, Richard Bexon. Today we're going to be talking with Dina Tochluk. Dina is the top realtor and one of the owners of the two Costa Rica real estate franchise in Papagayo. If you guys remember, we actually spoke to Scott, who was actually our first ever podcast. Scott's the owner of two Costa Rica real estate down in Mamel Antonio. Dina worked with him basically for many, many years, and then basically went up to Papagayo and set up the first franchise in that area for two Costa Rica real estate. So we're going to be talking about opportunities in the area of the Papagayo, that's Playas del Cocos, Playa Hermosa, Ocotal, and also around those areas of where the Four Seasons and the Andes is. This is an area of the region of Costa Rica that's been growing steadily over the years. We're also going to touch on the subjects of transfer tax and also property tax, HOAs, and also, water, electricity costs there. So you guys can get an idea of kind of what are some of the holding costs here in Costa Rica. They're very low on some aspects. So anyway, remember, if you have any questions that you want me to ask future guests or get future guests on to cover, please feel free to put them in the comments or email me. My email address is Richard, RICHARD, at Costa Rica REIT. That's Costa Rica REIT, REIT.com. So that's Richard at Costa Rica REIT.com. And remember, guys, to subscribe. We usually get about 1 or 2 podcasts out a week. So let's get straight into it. Dina, how are you doing today?
Very good. Thank you. How are you?
Very, very good. I very much appreciate you taking the time to join us here.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Well, I know, Dina, I gave the intro already, but you've basically lived in Costa Rica most of your life, kind of between the Costa Rica and US, correct?
That's correct. In San Jose's was my upbringing. I went to elementary and high school, and then I went away for college and then came back and really went straight to Mamel Antonio.
Wow.
And then from there, moved up north here to Papagayo, purchased the franchise, and it's the first branch here in Guanacaste. So
congratulations. Yeah. Congratulations. No, I know, again, you guys do a great job all over the country. And I'm sure it helps you having that perspective of Mamel Antonio, and then also kind of bring that up to Papagayo as well, because it's, they're two very, I would say mature, but they're not that mature, kind of destinations when it comes to real estate. So.
Well, it is. It's actually it's been an interesting, because obviously being brought up here, I was very familiar with Guanacaste, but living in, the Central Pacific and especially going down south, I have a very good perception and a very good grip on real estate in that market. So coming up here, it was very interesting, not only discovering so many cool places and things that I already knew existed, but then amplified by 100 with all the nooks and crannies that there are to find here in Guanacaste. So that part has been super exciting, and of course the comparison is very similar. The process is exactly the same. So of the process of closing, looking at properties and so forth. So it's been really exciting. It's been really neat to be able to add this area to the spectrum of offerings and things to see here.
Awesome. Well, Dina, as we said, you've been in Costa Rica, all of your life, but I'm sure you've seen some interesting things. I can only imagine. But what have you seen recently that surprised you?
Well, I think like everyone has been the way that the market just frankly took off in the United States. And and maybe a lot of your viewers don't know, but usually we're right behind whatever happens in the US, and that goes kind of across the board. So we knew that it was coming, and the interest rates dropping, and it's just been really a real buying frenzy, people buying things sight unseen. And really it's been something spectacular to see, across the board, from seeing not only agents, brokers, but architects busy, construction companies busy, the municipalities busy, escrows busy. Just everything. It's like the whole industry is really, just in full force right now. And so it's exciting, but, I've never seen it before. So it's very neat.
Good for you guys. Again, I know that, when we closed the borders down here from March to November, it was pretty tough for everybody. So it's nice to see that pent up demand coming. So, a lot of the listeners that are listening on to this, maybe have been to Costa Rica, maybe they haven't, they've seen some areas. The area of Papagayo, is kind of, I mean, it's that northern part, I suppose, from Ocotal, Playas del Cocos, Playa Hermosa, kind of all around that Papagayo Peninsula, where, if for anyone that's not listening, is where the Four Seasons is, and as you know, where potentially one and only resorts, where Ritz-Carlton's kind of going into as well. So, you know, it's a very prosperous area, because Costa Rica really designated that area as, you know, this is where the larger resorts are going. But I mean, describe to our listeners kind of, you know, what you think is the benefit of living in that area, and also what types of people you'll find in the area.
Well, I think that's a great question, because it is true. You know, there's something here for everyone. I think that it was pre-planned to be a destination because of its vastness, and also for the multitude of beaches and what you can do in the Gulf, and you know, from scuba diving to sailing. I mean, it's just something that it's a very much water-oriented area. I think that also with the planification of having the international airport being here is just huge, because anyone, you know, I was just actually just telling my neighbors, I had just got back yesterday from California, and, you know, I left at 11 a.m. and I'm literally walking in my front door at 6:30 p.m., you know, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, you know, it just makes life so easy. So I saw my neighbors were cracking up, because it's the first time I've actually flown out of Liberia. And they were saying that that's the only reason they bought, you know, was because it's a 30-minute drive to an international airport, and they can, you know, be in no time to see family and friends and what have you. So I think that's one of many anchors, that seems to be a big pull. In this area also, there are plenty of schools, bilingual schools, which is very important, especially in this area. There's a new large school called La Paz that's extending, that's actually has a branch a little farther south from here. And all of that is very positive for the area, because that's really what families in general look for, and is, you know, healthcare, schooling. And so I think that the healthcare part, we have very well centered. We have the airport, and now the school systems coming in. And it just seems like everywhere in Costa Rica, all those pieces of the puzzle just kind of organically grow. Yep. With the influx of people coming to the area.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you know, I know the area very, very well, as you're aware. You know, Playas del Cocos, we developed that 8-bedroom luxury villa that we've got up there, up in the hills. It's for sale for anyone that's listening, but the realtor actually for it as well, just in case. I should probably disclose that. But
property
you know, yeah, exactly. But you know, I love Playas del Cocos just from the point of view, you know, and that area, just because of the infrastructure as well. You know, it has the Automercado, which is kind of one of Costa Rica's best, you know, supermarkets. The Price Mart, which is our Costco, is right there by the airport, like 30 minutes away. You know, we have airports. You know, it's got great restaurants. I mean, it really is a great location for, I think, for somebody that.
It's incredible, because here in Coco, there's like over 70 restaurants. And,
yep.
And to me, that's just amazing, because you could eat something different every day. Go see a sunset in all different areas. And so I think that's where you still have the lazy town feel, like the fisherman feel. You can really walk easy everywhere, bike ride. And I think people really like that. And that also Guanacaste, again, is still very spacious. So you have everything a lot outdoors, and going back to COVID, I think that's really what people are looking for. And one of the interesting things that I'll just mention real quickly, like pre-COVID, people were always very interested in the ROIs of a property. What was that return on their investment, and how much were they going to be able to rent, and what were they going to make, and they use it a few weeks out of the year. That's actually changed. Like, people want to know, you know, how many homes can I get on this piece of land, and they're looking for space and openness, and actually finding that they can work here because there's fiber optic, great internet. And so that's a huge pull, because now they can see, well, I can work here a couple of months or half the year or even a full year, and just go back every other week or something like that, or once a month or once every 6 months. So there's definitely a shift on how people are actually looking at Costa Rica as well, like looking at it more as not just a second vacation home, but either their full-time home. Yep. Or definitely a part-time, you know, half-half.
Well, and I think the whole area of Papagayo has a great inventory as well of properties, everything for everyone. You know, I mean, it's one of the very few locations where you can get something nice for, you know, $250,000. Yeah. You know, or even $300,000. You can get something decent. Whereas in some of the more, build up, I say build up, but I mean, just for listeners to understand, I mean, Costa Rica is not built up really of any of the beach towns. I mean, compared to other areas like Mexico, Hawaii, I mean, Costa Rica is very rural. I mean, you can drive down the coastline here and not see houses for like 15, 20 minutes, on the beach. You can not see any, things. So I just want to make that clear to people. If Costa Rica is still really underdeveloped, even though we talk about, the area of Papagayo being more of a developed area, there's still a lot of green space. But I mean, Dina, what's selling at the moment, or is just everything selling? Is there more people buying condos, more people buying houses, more people buying land?
Well, up here, because again, condos aren't what people think in the States, like in Miami Beach, where you have these giant condominium buildings. In this area, the condominiums, are mainly like 3-4 stories. And so, and a lot of the condominiums here, especially in Coco, are walking distance to the beach. So those are always popular for single people, retired people, couples, and that's always kind of a hot bread and butter item. Then we definitely have the families that are starting to come, which is something that I feel is something that's newer in the amount of families coming. And so I find that that's very like an interesting niche, because that's one of the niches where we're weak. Like, we need more single family homes.
Yep.
And I believe those are coming because, basically all of us know that's what we need. And so
Yes.
That's kind of like getting kicked into gear. And then, of course, there are people that are, if they can't find a home, they are doing a lot in building their homes. And, a lot of people get nervous about that. So it's more the people that feel more comfortable with that. So, it's really all across the board. And interestingly enough, this year has been crazy with like bigger companies coming in looking for hotels, so it's also something that like it's cyclical, but this is the cycle, because for the past 3 years, you could go knocking on everyone's door and it was rare that you were going to be able to get like a hotel sale. So it's really kind of like an interesting market from the outside looking in. And right now, I think, again, everyone's so busy, you're just kind of running with it as it comes. Yep. And not putting much thought as the demand's there.
Yeah. Well, I always ask on this podcast for listeners or, to email in stuff that, questions and stuff. So we just had a question came in, and I know you and I were discussing it beforehand, just about taxes a little bit. Yeah. We were talking about transfer taxes. I mean, when you purchase something here, what is the, transfer tax that people would be looking at? What is that amount? Because there is closing costs kind of all in, and I think all in, with, I suppose, lawyers' fees, escrow, transfer taxes, we're probably talking what, 4 to 5% of the overall amount?
Yeah, I would say, 4% is solid. I think like a lot of people by saying 5, you're kind of giving that little extra cushion and walking away with no surprises. But when at a 4% is a safe rule of thumb. Yep. to go by, and that's what I tell my clients.
Yep. And because the transfer tax is 1.5%, then you've got escrow fees, lawyers' fees, stamps, all this kind of stuff. So, but they were asking really about the transfer tax. So transfer tax here, if I had a property and I was transferring it to you, Dina, it would cost 1.5% of the value of the property, correct?
Correct. And all those costs, just so that, the listeners know, are fixed prices. So it's not like if you use attorney A and attorney B, you'll get 2 different prices. Like it's just a standard rate that's set by the government. And so, it doesn't fluctuate much from place to place. So that's
I think the thing I always love to see people's face at, Dina, is when they ask the question, what is property tax in Costa Rica, and you respond to it, because people are usually expecting probably higher amounts than it is. But if I'm correct, here in Costa Rica, property tax is 0.25%, meaning that if you buy something for $100,000, your yearly property tax is $250.
That's correct. And actually, I was telling a client that once, and literally he stopped me. He goes, he tells me, I really think you're wrong on that. Because I think you really should double check on that, because that just doesn't sound right. And so it is a real shocker for people. And when they actually kind of like grasp it, it's actually quite a relief, because people don't really talk about it. And it is a big deal. It is a big deal because it is very, very inexpensive.
Yeah, I mean I mean taxes are very low here. I mean it's great. I mean water I pay nothing. I mean water is very inexpensive in Costa Rica, you know, because we have an abundance of it. I mean I think I spend about $4 a month on water, but I'm here in the Central Valley, so it's a little bit cheaper. But I mean still even out at the beaches. I mean how much are you paying for water, would you say?
Oh, no, I pay something ridiculous. It's like literally like maybe $15 every, 3 months or something like that. It's very, very inexpensive. I think here, one of the things that I do mention to clients is here it's really the electrical that will catch people by surprise, but really it's relatively very similar if you're doing what you do at your home and turn off everything when you leave, turn it on when you come home, and literally kind of operate the same way that you do in the States. It's very similar to the US prices. Here, where people really get kind of like knocked over is when they leave the ACs running all day or in rentals,
Yep.
if they don't have a system in place. And that's just, talking to your local agent, broker, or people that do management. And most places are very good in guiding clients that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always tell people, I mean, you gotta keep an eye on your HOA fees as well, because again, depending on what your goals are, HOA fees can be anything from, well, nothing right up to thousands of dollars. But, I mean, typically, again, when the HOA fees are higher, the place usually looks pretty spectacular. Like I know Pacificor's HOA are anywhere from like $400 to $700.
Yeah.
But I mean, the place looks brand new every single time, if you go into it,
Yeah.
and the gardens are beautiful.
It really is, like, I mean, when I do look like comparison, and it's true, because I've seen places that charge just as much as Pacifico, and you're kind of like, but what's happening here? And when you see really, so it's really not so much what you're paying or how much you're paying, but if it's checking off all your needs and wants and that's being met, I think is more important. But yeah, you have some really great HOA groups in a lot of places here. Most places, I'd say, in Guanacaste are very HOA oriented. And with that does come a release of headache for a lot of those little things that you just don't know what to do or how to take care of. And I think that is quite comforting for a lot of people coming down that are used to that in the States, or don't want to deal with it, or know how or stuff. So.
Well, because I mean, normally a homeowners association will probably hire like an administrator, like for the whole project. I mean, is that typical? I mean, I have it here in my condominium. We have an administrator that comes in like twice a week, but she handles all the books. She handles all the gardening stuff. Like it's not handled by us. I know that a friend told me the other day that they lost that person, and then basically the owners had to kind of form a board in order to get that, going. But and it's a lot of moving parts.
Oh my goodness. Well, yes, HOAs are usually, like they'll be, in some HOAs are like the one actually like in Manuel Antonio where I live in there, the HOA was made up of the residents.
Yep.
In the case for Pacifico, which I would say would be on the other extreme, is very, very corporate, right? So you do get your reports and updates and emails. As a matter of fact, I just got an email today that they're finishing the tennis courts and pickleball courts, and they'll be done by next month. So, you get things that are giving you newsletters and gatherings to the last dime and of what's being spent, to basically board meetings twice a year, and you'll hear about it at the meeting, kind of thing. But it is also very, I will say, because a lot of people will get a little bit skeptical about the HOAs, but HOAs are also regulated by the government, and they also have to pay taxes and have to report. So to avoid any Yahoo just saying they want an HOA because they want an HOA. So most HOAs are very legally set up and legit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people are looking to invest in Costa Rica at the moment. And I mean, I know this is a pretty broad question, but what advice would you give to people potentially looking to invest in Costa Rican real estate?
That's a great question, because right now, due to what we were talking about earlier about real estate being on fire, there's different pockets in Costa Rica that are hotter than others. I would, one is to make sure that the person does their homework and also gets to know Costa Rica. You don't have to love where you invest, but get to know what's moving. And honestly, this area that we're in right now, I feel is like just ripe, and not just because I'm here, but because, I see what's happening down in the Southern Pacific area in Malpais and Santa Teresa, what the prices have done. And I feel still here, and you feel it creeping up. You feel it Conchal, Flamingo, Potrero, and everyone has their, pods, but I feel that Coco and Hermosa and Ocotal and so forth in this area is still very, you mentioned it, very reasonably priced. You can still get good lot sizes, very, complete homes. Like it's not something that is that you're buying less of a product. So I find really that this area, and being that even that it's closer to the airport and what have you. So it's interesting because I have no doubt that we are on fire as it is, and we are not quite running out of inventory. And I think that that's a big difference in other parts of the country as well, is because Guanacaste, and especially Coco and Hermosa and Ocotal and so forth, has a little bit more inventory because of it's just a more mature area. And when you get into the Malpais and Santa Teresa or Flamingo, it's up and coming, but a lot of their inventory is gone. So.
Well, I mean, you talked there that again, there's not tons of inventory in some of those areas, but I mean, in the area where you're at the moment, if you're a developer or someone looking to build something or flip something or something, where do you believe the gap in the real estate market is at the moment? Where do you think someone should focus?
If I had to advise someone, I'd say get a lot and build a single family home. And I think that there's a real large opportunity in that market, not only just to build, but to really, because, and again, I love this topic. I think that it's really interesting in this area because of reasons in the past that there was a gap where there wasn't much building going on. And a lot of those problems have been resolved, water, what have you. And so there's a lot of new building coming up. And I think that that's really exciting for people coming in new, because they can actually bring in a really, I want to say not modern, but a real new feel to this market. And I think not only would it be refreshing, but it's just an add to the mix, because it's wide open for that. And so even though there's a gap in the market for single family homes, I think there's also a very exciting opportunity to bring in a whole new look or feel, because it's just the time. And so I think that there's a lot of great architects and builders out there and decorators, and there's quite a few areas and lots that can be developed right now. And I think that it's a great opportunity. And that's what I would do. Like, I do see like a lot of just beautiful views, and I can just see where my living room would be in the bedroom. and that part I love as well, the project.
Well, the last question I love to ask everyone is, if you inherited $500,000 and you had to invest it into a business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you do with it and why, Dina?
Well, I think I kind of answered that my own question with the last one. I think if I had that money, I would buy a lot and build a single family home, or and probably do something in that area, because I know for sure it would be not an easy sale, but something that just is needed in the area. But also, I think that if someone was looking just for a good, solid investment, would be in condominiums, because you could pick up easily 2 beautiful condominiums, fully furnished, and have the money work for you. Because again, being so close to the airport and having so much stuff to do in this area, is really an attraction. And that's something that I've grown to really appreciate since I've lived here, is being so close to Rincon de la Vieja, Arenal, and no matter, the blue rivers and the hot baths. And it's like literally all in the backyard, besides the sailing and the scuba diving and the endless amount of beaches. And so I think that it's a place that just by being where it's at will always have feeders in the tourism industry. So I think that that's kind of really a win-win there.
I think that's great input. Well, Dina, we'll not take up much more of your time, because I'm sure that you guys are closing like crazy. I know that you are. So every time I speak to someone, they're just like, Rich, I can't talk at the moment. I got 5 closings happening today, you know? So yeah, it's been pretty crazy, but really appreciate your time and also the input. And as I think I said in the entries, if anybody would like to see any future topics or would actually like to get into contact with Dina, I will put all of her contact details in the description so you can reach out to her personally.
Well, thank you so much, Richard.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much, Dina. You have a great day.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.